How's it going?
Hey, dudes!
Well, we are so excited to be live with you tonight, this evening. Daniel, Michelle, they brought an awesome lesson tonight, and I cannot wait to go over it with all you guys. And thank you guys again for commenting, for sharing. As we keep encouraged, as we keep doing this, we keep encouraging you guys. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you want to put anything, any inputs, you're more than welcome to. We love hearing from you guys. We love contacting. We love engaging. Vice versa, we love it when you guys even send private text messages, messages even altered. Thank you so much, and it's been fun contacting and hanging out with you all. So, some announcements real quick.
Yeah. Oh, has anybody got the feed yet?
No.
We're making sure we're live before we get too far here.
Oh, yep, there we go.
Got it? Okay.
We don't know. I don't know that hopefully everybody heard. I still don't have it. So, did it start from the very beginning?
I don't know.
Well, we can, I'm sure I know it did. So,
Right.
we'll just have to go back and watch this anyway.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Just making sure we're up and rolling here. So, as far as announcements go, who wants to announce Sunday?
This Sunday, we will be having communion. Easter Sunday, we're excited. Communion, we'll be having with Pastor Ken. He goes on at 11 o'clock, and we're encouraging everybody that's watching at 11 o'clock, have some bread, have some juice, so that way you could have communion with your family. Also, you can have communion with the church, as Pastor Ken brings an awesome message. We're excited. Easter's probably one of my favorite holidays. I love the meaning behind Easter. So that's this Sunday at 11 o'clock. He's going to go on live. So make sure you've got bread, make sure you've got juice ready, because we're going to be taking communion together as a family and as a church family. So be prepared for that.
Yes, and because of that, we are actually going to be changing our Sunday live to not a Sunday live. So we're going to actually move it to Saturday evening. And the kind of thought process behind all of that is being it's Easter, we really just don't want to compete with Pastor Ken's Easter sermon and the communion and all that kind of thing. Our particular discussion here isn't really so much Easter related. So we decided that we're going to come in probably, we say 6:30 Saturday evening.
6:30, yeah.
Is that right? 6:30 on Saturday evening, we will come in and we will do the second half of what we're going to start tonight. So make sure you guys don't be scheduling any big wild parties or nothing. You got to be here to be live with us and get the second half of our discussion. So that'll be coming up on Saturday evening at 6:30. And then I forgot to ask you before we started, is there any announcement about the thing on Saturday, delivery?
Yeah, the thing that we're doing, we're partnering with a nonprofit here in town. We're going to be delivering local groceries to towns like Neosho, Seneca, just surrounding towns, Mack County, just Diamond, between Neosho and Joplin. Guys, I want to thank you for the response that we've had. We've had a lot of volunteers say that they want to be a part of it, that they want to be out and to deliver to a lot of the elders out that's not getting any groceries. Guys, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. We have the chance and an opportunity to be a light in the community. And God calls us to serve. God calls us to be the hands and feet. I want to thank you right now. For the ones that are volunteering, you're more than welcome to just stay with our page. I will have updates, also personal text messages. I will have routes sent out to you guys and times and things like that, instructions on where to meet and how to keep each other separated and under 10. But it's going to be an awesome time, guys. I'm super excited. That's Saturday morning. I just saw a lot of movement over here. I didn't know. Squirrel! Anything else that we can think of?
Is that it?
No, I do know that Hope Kitchen is still on for the first weekend in May, but we are limited to how many people can actually be there and how we're going to serve. So I will actually be talking to, we can only have 10 people, so I know the cooks, myself, and just a few other people will be handing food out that day on the 1st. So just be praying over that ministry as well, that, The last time I talked to Desiree, she said it was like 180 people that they served, which has been a
Wow.
huge jump
Yeah.
for us, because I think the last time we served 80, and so just be praying for everybody that's serving in that, just for protection and for the families that are in need as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we was watching the news earlier, and Michelle wasn't quite in there just yet, but they were showing all these really long food lines.
Oh,
Like
wow.
in California, there was a big, huge food line, and I think the other one's either down in, I think it was in Texas or Florida, one or the other.
Wow.
But they said that in these, bigger metropolitan areas, the cars they stretch forever, and wanting to get the free food from the places like Hope Kitchen and the Help Center, and places like the churches
Wow.
that are giving out the food and all that kind of thing. And I think that for our area, a lot of us are kind of fortunate,
Right.
because we're still. It's affected some of us, but some of us are still able to work. We're still able to have an income and all that kind of thing, and so we haven't really seen
Right.
a lot of that yet. And honestly, I hope it doesn't
Right.
get like that here.
Dan, I've noticed that over time, if you guys notice, like the big cities, they hit like a surrounding, and then it slowly comes towards the middle. So I mean,
Yeah.
in a way, don't be surprised if the Hope Kitchens and the Restoration Life Centers start packing up, because guys, the needs are there. So be asking God to how can you be a light to meet those needs. There's going to be opportunities coming up, and I don't want to be a damper on things, but according to the forecast of the economy, things are not going to look any better anytime soon. So I mean, just keep hopeful. Keep your communication with the Lord. Be praying, and ask to be an opportunity to be a blessing to somebody.
Yeah, it's a good time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, we've got some members of our group that's been majorly blessing people here
Yes.
lately. And we just want to thank everybody that's involved in that. We're not going to say any names, but
We just appreciate it.
we're just super proud. It's amazing the impact that our group has had.
Yeah.
And as I've been watching Facebook, all the different posts from the people that's been blessed and the pictures they've been sharing, it's been awesome to sit there and watch that. And I'm super proud of our group.
I think what amazes me is the fact that we have a lot of servant leaders that are obedient, and they're willing to step out of their comfort zones, just so that way they can serve people, they can love on people, and they can just be obedient to God, number one. So I mean, it's been an honor, and it's been a blessing to watch.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Do we want to
So-
announce anything about our little game?
Yes.
We have a game
On Saturday, we're probably going to have a game or two that you guys can hopefully all interact in. I hope everyone can be a great sport and play along with us. So we're looking forward to it. It'll be a lot of fun.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of interaction. So be ready to be crazy. Be ready to have fun. What else can we say? That I don't want to give too much away. But
No.
Just be ready to have fun. It's gonna be
Yeah.
loud. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be wild. So
for some of you that aren't in our class normally, so you're going to participate. So I'm actually seeing all the names that are popping up watching, so we're going to expect you guys to participate as well.
we want everyone
And we're
to play.
super excited about it.
And that doesn't mean log off real fast and act like you weren't on here. We got you right here recorded. So, all right. First things first. I'm gonna take this off.
Make it hot.
We brought the beach to you tonight. We're just so excited about this 80-degree weather and how we get to enjoy it for 2 days, and then it's going to be freezing cold again here in a couple of days.
yes.
That we decided to just celebrate that tonight, and so hopefully you guys are feeling beachy where you are, because you're watching us be beachy here. And we're just going to go ahead and get into our discussion tonight and see what God has for us. So we posted some questions earlier, and we will get to those here throughout the discussion for tonight. As I said earlier, this will be a part one of part two of 2 parts. We'll do the second part of it on Saturday evening. So if you don't catch everything tonight, you can go back and watch this again on Facebook to keep yourself up to date on where we are at. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start Philippians chapter 4 tonight. And I was talking we was talking here a little bit at the beginning. Last Sunday, we was watching several different churches online, and it's so crazy how many churches are preaching out of Philippians 4 right now. I just every time I pass one, either on Facebook or on YouTube, on TV, they were preaching out of Philippians 4. It's like one of the biggest anxiety, fear books in the Bible, basically. So we're just going to barely touch on it tonight, though. Then we're going to move on. There's a reason that we're in Philippians 4 tonight. We actually have discussed out of Philippians 4 a couple of times here in this last month since we've been quarantined, if you want to call it that. And so we're going to go ahead and get back into Philippians chapter 4, verse 8 tonight, so you guys can follow along. And then here in a little bit, we're going to be in Numbers 13 for most of the rest of the evening. So as we get started here, you guys just, whenever you have something, just hop in. We're going to have a good discussion. So we'll start with Philippians 4, verse 8. It says, "Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on or think about these things." Verse 9, "The things which you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do." So basically in that scripture, it's not just enough to discover the right thought, but we need to put those thoughts into action.
Yeah.
We need to do these things if these thoughts are placed inside of us. That's where the difference is made inside of our lives. If we apply these promises to our everyday living. And finishing up that verse, it says, "And the God of peace will be with you." When we've got God, we've got peace.
Yeah.
I truly believe that. I know that there's times that we're still going to probably be worried. There's times we're still going to be anxious. We're going to have these moments that we go through things. But in all reality, if we've got God in our life, we do have a step up above the people that don't.
Yeah.
And when He's there, He can put that peace inside of us. When we have God, we have joy. When we have God, we get courage. There's just a lot of things, a lot of attributes of being a Christian that we have that's a step above everybody else. And you might say, "Well, I'm not a very courageous person," because I know we all like to be our own self, our worst critic or whatever. And you might say, "Well, I'm not a very courageous person." Well, really the response back to that is, if God lives inside of you, you are a courageous person.
Yeah.
God gives us that courage that we need. And maybe you just haven't awakened that sleeping giant inside of you yet. Maybe you got it in you. It's inside of you. Maybe it's just something that you need to work on and trying to find that inner courageous spirit that's within you that God has placed there and try to apply that in your life. And when you can get that courage and you can live that courage out, then all these anxieties and these fears and these things that come your way, you will have the courage and the peace in your spirit and everything to defeat those thoughts and those things that can come inside of us and take us over. And Paul's saying here that the way to awaken this is, if we go back to verse 8, he's saying that we awaken this courage inside of us by applying whatever things are true, noble, pure, just, lovely. And tonight, the one that we're going to focus on is the next one, which is a good report. That's what we're going to focus on tonight. So we're just going to pull a little piece out of this scripture, and we're going to kind of go off a different direction with it and look at this in a little bit different way. Receiving bad news is one of the quickest pathways to experiencing anxiety. I think you guys probably would agree with that.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's no surprise that many of us may resonate with a fear of bad news, either at work, at home, or at school. And I think, whenever we sit there and we think about when we get bad news in our life, I'm sure all of us at the age that we're at, we can think of a lot of times in our life when we've received some news that we did not like.
Yeah.
And we've received some news that did not sit very well with us, probably made you sick to your stomach. It might have depressed you for a week or two.
Right.
Getting bad news can have a lot of different effects on people.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's that big a deal, but in all reality, that can make or break a person in a lot of ways. Everywhere we turn in the world, bad news is easy to find. We all face the challenge of confronting widespread and normalized negativity with a desire to see the world through a lens of hope. And I kind of think about our news feeds and that kind of thing when I read that. Everywhere that we're turning right now, we're seeing a lot of negativity.
Yeah.
Everywhere that we look, whether if it's the news or if it's other people's versions of the news, Facebook feeds, Twitter feeds, Instagram feeds, everywhere you look, there's a lot of negativity going on right now.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of people that are looking for hope. I think we're all looking for a hope in the middle of all of this. But again, it comes back to where do we get our hope from? As Christians, we know where our hope comes from. But the person out there that is not a Christian and does not have that relationship with God, they don't have access to that same hope that we do in order to be able to process this bad news in the way that God wants us to process that.
Yeah.
So the Apostle Paul, when he was writing these scriptures, he wasn't just writing a revelation from God, just something that God was putting in his mind. That was part of it, but Paul was living this at this moment. He was in a prison cell when he wrote these scriptures about anxiety and fear and how to overcome all of that. And, you can imagine being in a place like that, what that would do to your life. At that given moment, it could be a very bleak future that you could see in front of you if you didn't know for sure when you were going to be getting out of that situation. And that's where Paul was at this time when he wrote these scriptures. And he basically was writing these scriptures and telling us that we can focus our minds on things that are good, no matter how bad things look around us.
Right.
That begs the question, what would it look like to live life with no fear of bad news? I mean, how do you guys, when you think about living without bad news, what kind of thoughts does that pop into your mind instantly when you think about that?
I think automatically peace. You think about it. I mean, if we go through work, if we go through life, if we go through school, whatever that with the situations that we're going through, if there is no such thing as bad news, I think it was peace. God's there. At one point, Adam and Eve, they were in that atmosphere, if you will.
Yeah.
Until sin entered, then we've got fear. We've got all these situations that's happening around us, anxiety, if you will, a lack of encouragement. I just think of peace. I like to say I can understand, but to be real, being around so much bad news and things that happen around us constantly, I can't really imagine. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to think that'd be cool, but
It is hard, probably.
Yeah.
It is hard to even imagine what it would be like, probably, because honestly, more times we get bad news than we get good news. It seems like, especially the older we get.
Right.
For some reason, I feel like the older I get, it seems like a lot of times for some reason, seem to get more bad news than I do good. A lot of times, unfortunately. Well, in Psalms 112, verse 6 to 8, there's a declaration that David wrote there over Christians. It says basically that the righteous people will never be shaken.
That's right.
They will be remembered forever. Verse 7, they will have no fear of bad news. Their hearts are steadfast, trusting in the Lord. Verse 8, their hearts are secure. So in these scriptures we have stable, steadfast, and secure, if you like S's. Got the 3 S's there. Stable, steadfast, and secure. They will have no fear. In the end, they will look in triumph on their foes. Wouldn't it be awesome to be able to live our Christian walk 24/7 with that kind of an outlook?
Yeah.
All day long.
Right.
We have the promise, and we do have the capability of being able to live that way.
Right.
But when we're going through our mess all day long, and we have stuff being thrown at us from all sides,
Right.
we've got the news feeds, we've got the family feeds, we've got the friend feeds, we've got all these different things that are just constantly attacking us from every which direction. And at those moments when you're standing there right in the middle and all these things are pounding you from all sides, it's hard to sit there and think that I'm a Christian, I'm not going to be shaken.
Right.
God's gave me the strength to get through this. So a lot of times that's the last thing that's on our mind at that point.
Yeah.
We're almost kind of, I think sometimes in a recovery mode or whatever, we're trying to get out of it with the least bruises and battle scars as we possibly can, and try to move on with our life once we get past all of that. But in all reality, God's given us almost like a command here.
Right.
It's not really just something that we can live in. He commands us. If we're living in Him, then we are not really to have fear of bad news.
Yeah.
That should not shake our foundations.
Right.
He's given us a base to live off of.
Yeah.
And it's all about that base. It's kind of what I like to talk about. There's a base there that He puts in, that foundation that He builds us on and builds our Christianity on. And if we can actually be stable, steadfast, and secure on that foundation or that base that He's given us, then we can actually look back and say, okay, as a Christian, I'm not going to be scared of bad news.
Yeah.
I'm going to flip it off this shoulder, flip it off that shoulder, and I'm going to walk out courageous and brave and, not anxious or fearful. All these things that Satan wants me to be, I'm going to defeat all of that.
Right.
And I'm going to let that courageousness inside of me come forth. So basically what this scripture is saying, it's already written.
Yes, yeah.
That's exactly what the scripture is putting out there. Though it does not say that they will never receive bad news.
Right, right.
That's not what the scripture says. It doesn't say we're not going to receive it. It says that we will have no fear of it. So we know it's going to come. We know we're going to have the bad news and all the things that's going to be thrown at us. As people declared righteous through Christ, we have the ability within us to brave any adversity with the hope of Christ.
Yes.
I found out that, as I've walked along, I think a lot of people have a tendency to be weak. And it's not because of the bad news that they've received, but the bad news that they think they might receive.
Right, right. That's good.
Like, as parents, our kids are out late at night, they've been out to the movies or wherever, and all of a sudden about 11:30, 12 o'clock, our kids aren't home and we're getting a phone call. What's the
Yeah.
first thing as a parent that crosses your mind? Well, they've been in a wreck.
Yeah.
They're wrapped around a tree or telephone pole somewhere. Or they've been
Right.
caught at a party and now they're in jail and have to go bond them out. All this stuff just crosses your mind. Maybe they're not reliving our past, but
Speak
It's
for
not what we're looking
yourself
for.
over there. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not.
but
Maybe you.
it's funny how that triggers
Yeah, yeah.
when that happens. It's funny how those triggers are there. And, seeing somebody's name in an email.
Yeah.
If you're at work and you have emails come through, there's these certain people that if you see their name in an email and it comes to you, you're thinking, oh, I don't know if I want to open that. You just, every time they just got something bad that they need to tell you,
Right. Right.
And so that's another trigger of somebody that, when you see their name in an email, or maybe you think of a family member, you ever have a family reunion or something, and everything's going great and wonderful until all of a sudden you find out this one family member showing up, the one that causes all the problems, the one that comes in and starts all the fights, they may come sloshed or something, and just all this stuff about this person, you just know it's going to ruin the whole family reunion. But what's crazy about this is these are things that are pre the bad news.
Right.
We haven't really heard bad news yet,
No.
but because of our past experiences and because of what's happened to us before, we automatically have these triggers that when we see these things happen, it automatically triggers that response in our mind that this isn't going to be good.
Right. Dan, I think you're talking about the triggers of the bad news. I think triggers breed expectations. Does that make sense? Even bad expectations. You can have good ones, you can have bad ones just as well.
Yeah.
I mean, like you were talking about like the family member that comes to the family reunion and people are like, who invited him? Was it you? Was it you? And you guys are laughing because you're thinking about that person right now. But you're talking about that, and so whenever you're
Yep.
thinking about that person or something happens, those expectations, oh great, this is gonna happen. Oh
Yeah.
great, this is what's gonna happen. But no, I think you're exactly right. Before you receive the bad news, it's amazing how we automatically think the negative first thing.
It can already be affecting you.
Right.
You
Right.
don't even have the news yet.
No, I know there's a couple times where and I use this for work. So we're going, not recently, this is a couple years ago, we're going through this transition phase, and one of my bosses, he was calling me with bad news after bad news, and I remember I remember this one time he called me, and this was after weeks of calling me just random throughout the week, every now and then, every other day he'd call me, and he called and he's like, hey, and I'm sitting there, when I'm like, oh man, I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder what he's going to say now. I wonder what's changing in the company. Am I even going to keep my position? He's like, I just called to tell you that you're getting a promotion. And I'm like, okay. And I just remember that feeling why was I freaking out? So whenever you're talking about this, it automatically took me back to that spot 2 years ago. We automatically think those things.
Yeah, and that is another trigger, getting called to the boss's office. Or the principal's office.
Right.
Because those are usually associated with things that aren't so great.
Yeah.
Sometimes, my wife, for all of us married people, we can probably relate to this. My wife, I'll be talking to her, and she'll start off with, I need to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
And automatically I'm like, okay. What happened now? It's just the first thing. And then, after you get that look on your face, because it's obvious to read your response, something like that. Well, it's not bad, And sometimes it's not that bad, It all depends on kind of how you determine that. But it's funny how stuff like that
And
can
And I think
trigger.
it's been that way since like all my health issues. I'm like, oh, the doctor called today, and he's like, what they say? Like, not again.
Brace myself.
And I'm just like, well, it's not that bad. And then we have to tell him, and he's right, because if you really think about it, it's just, we're like our kids. They're calling, it's like what they want. And I can think that of my mom thinking of me, like, what did you want? Or you want money, or you want, something like that, and I'm just thinking of my children in the loan, because you think about, okay, what are they going to tell us? What do they need? What's going on? So,
Yeah.
can I sneak in here? And
jump in.
I'm trying to go back. We really haven't had the opportunity, so let me, so you know where we're at. Okay, so.
Kind of starting with, what was it?
Joanne has on courage.
Yeah, Joanna said courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that something else is more important than fear.
That's
Yeah,
good.
that's good.
And then, go ahead.
I think Tiffany, when she was talking about, I don't think that's possible on Earth, when you were talking about, the question, what was
No
that?
bad news or
Yeah,
something.
no bad news.
Yeah.
And then Joanna put, if I get bad news, my mind starts thinking of possible solutions. Sometimes before the sentence is finished. I can be that way too, so I can
Yeah.
totally get you there, Joanna.
Can relate
Yes.
for sure.
And then, go ahead.
Caleb said, I quit social media to cut out a whole truckload of negativity. Decided to focus more on what is around me instead of things that are thousands of miles away. Or just bury your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend bad news doesn't exist. Either way works.
As long as you can hold your breath for quite a while, you're okay.
And then Joanna put, triggers build the walls that you put up to keep yourself from getting hurt. And it's hard not to do that.
Yeah.
Did you read Tiffany's where it says that's why we have to take constantly our hurts and our anxieties and past experiences over to God?
That's good.
Because He handles that, yeah.
That's good.
So, all of you guys out there, I know you can relate to this. And, some of you that are in college, another example would just be like your report card. If you're doing good or bad in school. If you're doing bad in school, that report card is going to trigger, a bad response.
It's a really cold in my report card. in college.
Well, whatever it's called.
Or one like the financial aid
Is
officer.
it
I'm like,
well, what is it? You went to college.
It's not a report card.
For me, it was like the
It's
financial
actually
aid, like,
what's
what do I owe now?
I'm just a 12th grade graduate,
Emily,
so I
what
don't
is it
know.
called? It's not a report card.
I know it's
What
not
is
a
it?
report card. Can anyone help us on that one? Sorry, but I know it's not a report card.
Oh my goodness. So, when you get enough bad news, it creates an undercurrent of dread in our psyche and in our spirit, and it works on us and can send us off in a million directions.
Yeah.
And I think all of us can relate to that. So Paul said to think on things of good report. He said that for a reason. David said God's people should have no fear of bad news. So that kind of brings to a conclusion. The report that you believe is much more important than the news you receive.
That's good.
That's good.
There was a pastor one time that had a church, and they were getting very popular, very big church. And out of the blue, about 8-9 years into the ministry, an investigative reporter got a hold of the pastor and said, hey, we're writing an article on your church. We're going to send you all these list of questions and want you to answer these questions and fill them out and send them back to us. And of course, pastor, he's got all excited. He's like, this is our breakthrough. We're going to be able to get them in the papers and all this kind of thing. So they got the questions and they went through and they answered them the best that they could. And they were so excited to get all these questions out and these answers out there so that people could understand their church and what they were all about. Well, in the midst of all of this, a veteran pastor happened to make a phone call on a weekend there and was talking to this newer pastor, and he said he's in the midst of the conversation this came up. The pastor's all excited because he was getting the story written about him, and after he finished telling the story and about how that had the questions and they filled them out and they were all excited about them seeing the answers to these questions and putting them into the story, the first response from the older pastor was, "Oh, pastor." And he kind of sit there for a minute. He's like, "What's that mean?" He's like, "Poor stupid pastor." That's kind of what he really meant with that. And he's like, "What?" He said, "We're excited about this." That pastor said, you don't need to fill those questions out and send them in. He's like, well, why not? He's like, because. He said, these type of reporters, they've already got the story written. They're going to take what you say, they're going to fill in their little blanks of where they had some little filler that needs put in. They might put it in there for truth. They might twist it a little bit, keep some truth, put some false. They may twist them completely around and make them false. But he said, I guarantee you'll never see your questions and answers in that report. And the pastor's like, well, I got to give them a chance, that maybe they can change their mind and, change their ways and whatever. And the other pastor's like, you can try whatever you want. He said, I can guarantee you, he said, they are writing something that sells. They are writing a story that's going to get rewards.
Yeah.
They're not writing the truth about your situation. Positive stories don't sell.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, we've seen that happen our own selves in our walk with Christ. We've seen that happen within, our unsaved to saved friends. A lot of times, our unsaved friends, when we try to have to cut some of those ties off, all of a sudden we start getting a bad report from those that used to be our friends and that kind of thing. That story was already written. So now let's talk about us. We are investigative reporters also. In our own ways, we are an investigative reporter in our life. Everyone is a reporter. We go out each day, we collect evidence, but before we ever go out into our day, might I suggest that our story is already written. Everything that's going to happen throughout that day, it's already there.
Right.
That story has already been written for us. We're going to go to Numbers chapter 13, and we're going to start verse 17 through 20. And so in Numbers 13, verse 17, it says, Then Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, Go up this way into the south and go up to the mountains and see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are forests or if there are not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit back from that land. Now is the time of the season of the first ripe grapes. Had big grapes in this country, in this land. So in this story, Moses sent out 12 men, or reporters, to explore Canaan, what we would later call the Holy Land of Israel. So Numbers 13 captures the full account of these men scouting the land, how they found copious amounts of fruit, and how they returned to Moses speaking not of the fruit, but of the danger that lay in that land. Why was that? Because they believed the wrong report. Let's go on to Numbers 13, verse 21 to 26. It says, So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin, as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamath. And they went up through the south and came to Hebron, Ahiman, Pokemon, Shishai. Had to throw that in there. The descendants of Anak were there. And let's skip on to 23. Then they came to the valley of Eshcol, and there cut down a branch with one cluster of grapes. They carried it between two of them on a pole. They also brought some of the pomegranates and the figs. The place was called the Valley of Eshcol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Those were some big grapes. It took two guys to carry this cluster of grapes on a pole on their shoulders. So question 1, of the 12 people Moses sent, 10 of them came back with a bad report. Only 2 of them, Joshua and Caleb, gave a good report. Why do you think he believed their 2 good reports over the 10 bad reports? Of the 12 men that Moses sent to Canaan, only 2 of them reported that God's people should attempt to possess it.
Yeah.
Their report is likened to the approach of some of today's investigative news reporters. Many reporters will write their story before their investigation and use their questions to fill any gaps to support their story, just like the pastor story I said earlier. Likewise, many of us struggle with worry and anxiety because we write our own report before we ever step out into the world. And I don't know how many times I've seen people do that. I've done it myself.
That's good.
I'm sure you guys have probably done that before in your life. It's so easy for us to do that
Yeah.
because we just, from past experiences or whatever it may be, we just automatically, we're just shooting our future out there, just trying to write our own story before we even get to it. As in a story, look at those blessings. Look at the fruit that grows in the land that God had given them. Look at those grapes, those huge grapes. Here's the proof of God's promise. And they gave Moses this account. Those grapes represent reality. That's what God was giving them. All this fruit, the figs, the pomegranates, all this stuff was the proof of God's promise.
Yeah.
That was the reality of the thing. But what they say next represents their perspective. You experience your perspective.
Right.
I truly believe that. We don't solely experience our realities in life. We experience our perspective of our realities in this life.
Yes.
We don't experience our reality. We experience our perspective of reality. You can be carrying around grapes on your shoulders, but be so worried about the giants that you never go into the land and get what God gave you. In good news or bad, the report we believe is more important than the news we hear. The report you believe determines the future that you will experience.
That's right. That's good.
I feel so bad for these guys as they came back after seeing all this wonderful stuff that God had promised them.
Yeah.
God had already promised them this land before they even saw the grapes, before they saw the pomegranates. They even carried some of it back as proof.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so worried about those giants. They were so worried about those bad problems. They were so worried about those things in their life that they couldn't see past, that they didn't want to pray about. They didn't want to ask God to give them the courage to defeat or whatever. And so they did not go into that promised land to even claim what God had already given them. And the next question here, have you ever experienced a feeling inside you that God was calling you to do something, even though people around you told you that it wasn't a good idea?
Oh yeah.
If that's ever happened to you, what was it? I think I can think of a lot of times when I've told people about what God's spoken to me and they looked at me like I was stupid. That's a bad feeling when that happens. If we pray about things and we really feel like God's leading us to do something, we like to know that if we go to our best friends and our best backup,
Yeah.
and we tell them, hey, this God's laid this on my heart, and He's wanting me to do this and this or this, and are you guys in? You can help me out here.
Right.
And they look at you like you're crazy. That's a bad feeling,
Yeah.
And in some ways, I kind of feel like this may be how Moses felt here to an extent, because he sent 12 people, but only 2 of them even backed up what Moses was thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
God gave them the land of Moses, and Moses knew that. But 10 people came back and said they couldn't do it.
Your first question, you said, why did Moses believe or have faith in the 2 that came back with good report, as opposed to the others that came back with bad? Remember that? If you know God's promise for you, you're going to be seeking that. You're going to be feeding off of people that have that same hunger and know that, hey, God's got this for us. We're going to conquer. We're going to defeat it. Instead of the ones like, those guys were huge. The place is well guarded. Because how many times have, like you just said, through something you prayed about and you've asked for help and to people to help you and people turn you down, what does that do? It just takes the winds out of your sail, almost to where it's like you almost get angry. You're like, that's a bad feeling. You're correct. But then who do you feed off of? The ones that come next to you and walk with you and encourage you. You're right, Dan. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And those are the ones I believe that's how Moses felt when the 2 came back with the good reports. Now 2 compared to the other 10, that could be discouraging. But at times I think it just takes those 2 just to start.
Well, they were his
fire.
right-hand people.
Exactly.
He
Right.
believed and trusted their decision.
Right.
And that's the thing that I think about is when we're going through something, to surround us by those people that are in tune with the Holy Spirit, that have the discernment, and you're praying that they see the same thing, that are going to uplift you, because not every prayer or something that God has laid to ask you to go do is going to be answered within a year,
Yeah.
maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years. But you still have those people that have been praying with you that have discerned that knows that this is going to come to fruition at some point. And I think that he's seen it in these two
Yeah.
versus
And then
the other
Here's
ones.
another thing to look at too. The other 10 were the leaders of the tribes.
Yeah.
Those were leaders, you know?
Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
And I think it's perspective
It
sometimes.
is. Yep.
Because if you really think about it, my outlook versus Dan's outlook, nothing against each. I mean, we both have great quality and traits, but I'm a positive person, so I try to see everything positive out of anything.
Yeah.
I half glass, the glass is half full or half in. You'd say empty. I say full. So I'm like, it's just like that. But I think
Yeah.
that's the perspective thing that comes back. Doesn't mean he's any different.
No.
But
Right.
as in the leadership part, it's just in how they look at it. And I think that's the reason why in ourselves, if God has laid something on it, it's so important to be in tune to that Holy Spirit
Yeah.
and know that that's what God has called you to do. And of course, Satan knows that. He's going to be like, I'm going to put up roadblocks and it's going to discourage them. And they're going to be like, no, maybe I didn't. That's not what God. No, that's what God had for you. He's going to see you push through that. He's going to build you for that. He's going to strengthen you for that.
Right. That's
And
good.
it's going to keep going for that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Joanna
Yeah.
says
Sorry, thank you.
Lisa Turkhurst describes Joshua and Caleb as they didn't report from their confidence, they reported from their convictions.
Read Caleb's before that too.
We already know from the Bible that God has our best intentions for us, but how often do we choose to not believe Him?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to the fact we don't believe.
Exactly.
Sometimes we don't believe in what He has for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes we let discouragement
Mhm.
and we let other people tell us.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when I've talked about things, I'm like, this is what, and I'm like, no. And he's like, is that really what God laid on your heart? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, then go for it. It doesn't matter.
Well, how many times do we as humans say, I believe this is what God's got for us. I believe this is what God's going to do in us. I believe this is what God's going to put aside for us. And then how many do we hear, or even ourselves say, I believe this is going to happen because I think it's going to happen because of past experiences.
Yeah.
Back to what you were saying, and I love it. The report you believe determines the future you will experience. Are you going to believe God's report?
Yeah.
Or are you going to believe your own report based on your past experience?
Yeah. Yeah.
We do that a lot. I do that a lot. I speak for myself. I say we because I think as Christians, a lot of us, we do that because,
Right in that same boat.
yeah, we think, oh, we've got a foundation that's already strong, so whatever I think, it's based on what God's already put in my mind.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But how often do I seek God for that belief? Like, God, is this you?
Yeah.
Show me.
Yeah.
Teach us.
That's good. Moses, in this story, he asked his men to inspect Canaan and to size up the situation.
Yeah.
That's what Moses asked them to do.
Right.
But he never told them to size up themselves.
Mhm.
Never once did he tell them
Yeah.
to do that.
That's good.
Because what God knows about us is that if we start sizing up ourselves, we will always retreat in fear.
Yeah.
If we start looking at ourselves, can we get through this situation? Can I defeat this? I'm going to start right here, and it makes me think of those games that we used to watch on TV where they have to run across stuff really fast or it falls underneath you and that kind of stuff or whatever.
Wipe out.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Obstacle.
That's what it makes me think of. You're just getting ready, and can I zip through this real fast? And and a lot of times we'll size up ourselves and we'll say, well, we'll never make it. There's no way we're going to get across that, so I'm just stopping right here.
Right.
But in this situation, God was not wanting. He wasn't interested in them thinking if they could do it or not.
Right.
That was not anything to do with what God was after in this situation.
Right.
Okay, size up your situation, but be very slow to size up yourself, because you'll have a tendency to size yourself up according to your weaknesses and not God's strength.
That's good. That's right.
So we should size up our situation. We don't want to live in a place disconnected from reality where, we're opening up a bakery and we don't have any business sense, but we like to bake muffins. And, you're like, well, I'm going to be brave. No, you're probably going to be broke. Because if you get into that situation and you'll have that perspective where it needs to be, you're going to set yourself up to fail.
Yeah.
If you're not in God's plan and where He wants you to be. You need to understand a business model, and a lot of other things goes into that, not
That's
just
right.
knowing how to make a muffin.
That's right.
There's more to it than just that. God says that we are to magnify Him with our worship. But to magnify Him does not mean to make Him bigger. We're not getting out a magnifying glass and doing this back and forth thing, trying to pull God in here where we want him to be. What it means is that we bring him closer to us, to our visibility,
Yes.
so that now we can see God for how big he really is.
That's right. That's right. That's
If
good.
we will get into the Word and we'll get into our prayer life like we're supposed to, then that pulls that relationship with God closer to us. And that's when we start seeing those big defeats and those big battles being won. That's when we see how big God really is.
Yeah.
Because it's in those moments when we totally rely upon him and we put him in front of us as our big, big God, our big Father,
Yes.
then those, no matter how big those battles are, he's always going to be bigger than that battle.
Yeah.
I kind of look at that as our sins, you know, when Jesus died on that cross and he shed that blood, God sees our sins no more because our sins are covered by the blood of Jesus Christ.
Yes. Yes.
I look at that the same way. When we have God right here in front of us and we pulled him closer in our relationship with him, we can't even see that battle anymore.
That's good.
Because he's right there fighting that battle for us. And he's helping us get right through all of that. So these guys returned with bad news of how strong their enemies would be, saying, "We seem like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we look the same to them." Yet Moses chose to believe the good reports of two men, Joshua and Caleb. The third question here, you experience your perspective. What does this mean? How does making up your mind to believe a good report change the way that you receive bad news? We're going to go to Numbers chapter 13, verse 27 and 28 now. In verse 27, it says, "But the people, the promise is true, but the people. The promised land is every bit what we thought it would be, but the people who live there are very powerful." That's perspective.
Yep.
"The cities are fortified." Mustn't it have sounded strange to God when you start telling God,
Right.
who is all powerful, how powerful your enemies are that he's called you to defeat?
Yeah.
Now, mustn't that annoy and aggravate him? You know, I sit there and I think about that. God's gave us the ability to defeat our enemies. He's gave us the ability to defeat Satan. But when we get into these battles and these prayer rooms, you know, these prayer corners with God, sometimes we want to argue back and forth and keep reminding God how big this problem is. Remind God how big Satan is and how hard he is to defeat. God already knows, he knows how big Satan is,
Yeah.
and he knows that he's already defeated him.
Yes.
And he's gave us that strength within our own selves as Christians to be able to do the same thing. He's just waiting on our faith.
Right. Right.
He's waiting for us to step up and to make a difference. "The cities are fortified and very large. We even saw the descendants of Anak there, and these were some really bad boys." In verse 29, it says the Amalekites live in the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites, and I always like to throw the most feared and dreaded people in here, the Cellulites, live near the
Love
sea
that.
and along the Jordan. I love all these old time names in the Bible. They bring up so many things that you can kind of play with in there.
Wait, they're not real?
They're still around today. You know that?
We're very close to them too.
Yeah. So then Caleb, he was one of the 12 spies. So see, it was Caleb and Joshua. They were two of the 12.
Yeah.
And one thing that I find kind of interesting when I think about two of the 12, I figure that it's always a ratio of 10 to 2 of the number of thoughts that we have that tell us that we can't to the number of thoughts we have that tell us that we can. It's about 10 to 2 for most people.
Yeah.
I kind of figured that out. Even myself has been that way before. You know, some of all these people out here are positive and happy and all that kind of thing. The rest of us are trying to get that way. You know, we haven't quite figured out yet what's medicines or something they're on, you know, because they're always so happy about stuff. You know, so for us, it's about 10 to 2. There's 10 spies that came back talking about giants. There's 2 spies that come back talking about grapes. There's 10 spies that come back talking about problems. There's 2 spies that comes back talking about promises.
Yeah.
Now, I want you to think about not the spies that are in this passage, but the spies that are in your mind at this point. I want you to think about those spies that's inside of you, that's inside of us.
Yeah.
Those thoughts that go out and survey what God could do for you and what God is calling you to do, and the dream that God put inside of you, and all of this promise that God has given us in Christ. For Ephesians says, He has blessed us with every spiritual blessing in heavenly places in Christ.
Yes.
But your thoughts are the spies that determine whether or not you take your next step.
That's right.
We're going to finish there for tonight, and we will pick up here on Saturday evening. Yes. So when we think about these spies that are inside of us and how we allow them to just, manipulate us around, and how we allow them to determine our future, determine our next step. I've never really kind of looked at it that way to a point, but in all reality, that's kind of really what they are.
Yeah.
Moses sent these 12 men in to spy out the country, to spy out all the land and all that kind of thing. And when I think about that and I look at my own life and the way that I operate on a daily basis with my thought process and all that kind of thing, a lot of times as I go through my daily activities and I go through my daily news feeds and I go through my daily stuff that might be instigated because of my family or my friends, my church, my work, whatever it may be, my thoughts are always out there dissecting all these little things that are going on in front of me. And in a lot of ways, they're determining where my day goes. It's going to determine if my day is going to go good or if my day is going to go bad. It's going to determine if I take the right steps towards what God's wanting me to take, or if I'm going to take that step that's going to cause me to stumble and fall, and I'm going to take that wrong fork and go the wrong direction. You guys have anything that you want to share here as we close?
I want to talk on behalf of the ones that are always, like, you said, you see the cup as half full and you're always positive, and the way I think of it, you're talking about your perspective. My perspective is I remember, and I try to stay positive because I know where I could be if it wasn't for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, the hope I've got. I mean, these things are bad. I get bad news, but at the same time, look at the other side of the coin. Hell's even worse.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the way I see it. So almost every day when I'm in the Word, I try to ask and I catch a revelation of who Jesus is to me. Why serve? Because of who Jesus is to me. Why love? Because of who Jesus is to me. Why check on people? Is because of who Jesus is to me and what He did and how He saved me.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I look back at it, I tend to, if I ponder on these negative things that happen over and over again, that just ruins my whole day.
Yeah.
But then if I say, you know what, God, you got this. It's all about perspective. It's all about godly perspective and that foundation.
Yeah.
And that's why it's imperative to stay in the Word, because you catch a fresh revelation of who God is to you and what He did in a different way in every aspect of your life. And those spies, you talk about, I think about just checking yourself, checking your heart, checking your motive, and asking God, the Holy Spirit, to use this to clean this constantly. Use prayer to change this, to change my perspective.
Yeah.
So that's why I try to stay in a positive. And another thing too, people are watching us. That's how I see it. So if I say, "Oh man, I'm a Christian, but I'm freaking out. Let me get a ton of toilet paper, right now, because I don't have enough. We've got a ton, in the basement. We need more." How does that look?
Yeah.
A representation. Are you a light or are you a hindrance?
Yeah.
So
We come to a point where we feed the frenzy.
yes,
If
you're
we're not
exactly
if we're not careful, all the stuff that's going on around us, if we don't control those thought processes in our mind,
Yeah.
those spies that are going out, however you want to call that, then we can be a part of the problem
Yes.
if we're not careful, and we'll let our perspective then overrule our reality
Right.
of where we're really at, and we'll create a cocoon that we live in that's not really what God intended for us.
You're right.
We start living in an out of place area in our life, and then we start having problems.
Yeah.
Because we know once we're out of God's will, then that's when Satan's going to really attack us, and we've lost that protection at that point.
Yeah.
If we're not where we need to be, we're not going to have the protection that God offers in the same way as we would if we stay on His path.
And to go back to your story, not your numbers, back to your lesson, I want to be part of the 2 and not the 10.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think it takes boldness. And here's the thing, it doesn't say anything about them being scared. I bet they were scared.
Mm-hmm.
But because of their perspective, a godly perspective, they're like, you know what, we're going to take him. Am I scared down underneath? Well, yeah. But, God, look at David, and with Goliath. I bet you there was a part where he was like, oh my gosh, this guy's huge. But you know what? Through Jesus Christ, I'm going to defeat him. Through God, with him helping me, I'm going to defeat. That's how we should do with life. And when God gives us an order to serve, man, that could be really scary, if you will.
Mhm.
But through all that, through the fear, through the anxiety of things that might be popping through your head, just go for it. Be bold.
Yeah.
If that's God, I mean, what else bad's gonna happen? You know?
When
Yeah.
I think about the boldness, and I
Yeah.
think I remember in Dana's class, I just think about who is it? Is it what's his name was that stands out on the streets and he talks to? Was it Ray? Whoa, Ray Comfort.
Yes.
Yes,
Is that who
yes,
it is?
yes.
I am just amazed at how he can stand up and just come up. Do you know Jesus? And it's just like that is boldness, and
Yeah.
it's just like wow, you know, I
Right.
said, hey, do you know Jesus? You know, it's just so awesome that you know the two spies had to have boldness to
Yeah.
stand amongst the difference of the 8 versus the 2.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine all 8 saying negative things, and then you get to the very last 2, and they're like, "Do we speak up? Do we not speak up?" You know how hard is that
Right.
to be able to speak those 2 that are like, "No, this is what we see," versus the other 8.
Yeah.
And you know, I sit there and I think about it. And every time I think of spies, I think of ninjas. And I think of, you know, just the ninjas like slowly like chopping you or something, taking a piece of you that's like negative. And I'm not, and when you were talking about that, I'm like, oh, the ninjas are taking a little piece of you. And I'm like, I don't even know ninja, and I'm gonna be like better than that. And they're not gonna steal my God, and they're not gonna steal my joy or my purpose.
Right.
But I think of spies, I just always think of ninjas, and I'm like, whoa, you know, I don't want to be one of those.
So you think of me and Dan when you think of spies? Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you laughed like this.
We got our game on.
Right.
Yeah, it reminds me of being on like a board, and you're all voting for something, and the first 10 guys vote it down, and you're the only 2 guys that's
Yeah,
going
it-
to vote for it.
You
Yeah.
have to have that kind of boldness,
It's
and
tough.
I just, I mean,
Yeah.
I sit there and you think about like you're gonna have a different version, you're gonna have a different version, you're gonna have a different version, but you got to know within yourself and be attuned that you're gonna say, this is what I think, and this is what I saw, and this is what God has put before us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be different, it's kind of cool to be different.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not to be amongst everybody else. We're supposed to be the difference in the world and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So.
For sure. Well, this is very hard for me to cut one of my
Right.
discussions in half. So, as a matter of fact, when I cut it off all ago, it just seemed so awkward.
And
But-
Ryan, I seen your post just a minute. You have so many questions. Take those questions. We put them on the altar page.
Yeah.
Message Dan or Scotty, and you know we'll get those answered.
Who?
And
Ryan.
Ryan Hammond, yeah.
Oh,
He has so
yeah.
many more questions, and the midgets instead of ninjas. That's so funny because it probably sounds like that. But we may have to break this lesson up in 3 different ones.
And real quick,
So-
Maria, you're not the only one. When I'm looking at the screen and I see Moana standing behind Michelle, I too do a double take like, oh my god. But that's pretty cool. Yeah, I saw that as well.
Michelle's just two-faced. We just never figured it out. So. All right. Well, are we? Everybody.
We're gonna do Saturday night, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
We're gonna do Saturday
6:30?
night. Yeah.
And don't forget, we're gonna do some games, so please participate. It's gonna be a
Yes.
lot of fun.
You have to be willing to do whatever.
Yes.
It'd be fun.
I may not be here. That may put me out of my comfort zone.
Do you want to pray
All
and
right.
turn this off? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go ahead then and we'll close this in prayer. Don't forget that we are doing the second part of this on Saturday, so if you did not see the whole discussion, you're going to be completely lost if you get in here Saturday night and try to pick up where we pick up on Saturday. So please go back and watch the video between now and then, or if you didn't catch all of it, go watch it, or if you just need a refresh, it's going to be on Facebook.
And we'll
So
put the questions for the next set on Alter
Yes.
as well.
yeah, we'll post those early again like we did today. But I just wanted to forewarn you, Saturday night's going to pick up where we left off. So in order for you to understand where we are, you're going to need to refresh yourself before we start Saturday evening at 6:30. So we're going to go ahead and dismiss in prayer. It's been awesome getting to spend this time with you guys again,
Yes.
even though all I'm looking at is my iPhone. But we know you're out there because we see you making comments there.
Still
Good.
dusting off the sand.
Yeah, we're
So-
still got the beachy vibe going on. So we're going to go ahead and dismiss here and get out of here for tonight, and we will talk to you guys again on Sunday. So let's go ahead and bow our heads. Lord, we thank you tonight for your many blessings. We thank you once again for your word, God. We thank you once again for the promises that you give us. And Lord, I just pray that in our perspective of our life that you've given us, I just pray, Lord, that we would always look for that good perspective. Lord, and not live in the reality of things. If we live in the reality of where we're at right now, God, we'll be defeated. there's no way that we can rise up as strong warriors in you if we live in the reality of all the bad things that are taking place in this world at this moment. God, I just pray, Lord, that if we have a problem with cutting off that reality in our minds, I just pray that you'd give us the strength to do that flip-flop. God, that we could put that reality behind us of what we're living in, and God, that our perspective would be more guided towards you. That everything that happens to us in our life, God, that it would take on a pure perspective, a holy perspective, a perspective based on your word, Lord, in our prayer time, that you would guide those thoughts in our minds, Lord, to go the right direction so that we can live in a positive way. Lord, that we can live in a way that lifts you up and magnifies you and draws you closer to us, God. And I just thank you so much for your many blessings that you've given each and every one of us. Keep us all safe, Lord, as we go throughout the remainder of this week, and bring us all back together again safely on Saturday evening as we get into this Easter weekend to celebrate your death, burial, and resurrection, and that salvation that you gave us through that victory on that cross. We just thank you so much for your many blessings. You're such an awesome God. I pray a blessing on everybody out there that's been listening tonight, Lord. We thank